Hey, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we're going to be talking about barlows today, but not just barlows. We're going to be talking about the history of this iconic knife. And I don't really like barlows, but a lot of people do, and that's okay. But whether you do or you don't, the thing about the barlow is it is one of the foremost patterns in the world. And so this pattern harkens back to the 1670s, and no other knife is like this. Now, you could argue that some patterns like the old tarjack sailor's knives, are older than this pattern right here, but this is the oldest continuous pattern that's been produced in the world, and is what makes it so interesting. But we're going to be talking about the history of this knife today, what makes a barlow, what doesn't make a knife a barlow, all the different specifics about how you can tell what is a barlow, what isn't a barlow. And it's going to be a really interesting video, so I hope that you'll join me in the video. My rose bush is just a mess. Kind of like my wife when she gets up in the morning. Yeah, it's kind of a mess. Oh, hey honey. Hey, welcome back to the fortified castle. Hi to all my viewers. Thank you very much for joining me. You will find this a fascinating video, I'm sure. Very, very interesting subject when you talk about barlows. Why don't we define what a barlow is before we begin? And so, this is a barlow, what we would recognize as a barlow. And to begin with, a barlow is a jackknife. So any knife with one or more blades at one end is a jackknife, and both these blades are attached at one end. So at first it's a jackknife. Secondly, most barlows would be considered a regular jack, and that refers to the specific type of pattern that it is, although not all. Some are sleeve board jacks. And so the main difference between these two right here is a regular jack has a square tail on it, the square bolster, and the sleeve board has a round bolster here at this end. And that's the main difference between those two. So what really makes a barlow is the fact that it has a bare head. This is the head side of the knife. When there's not a bolster there, it's a bare head. And it has an oversized bolster right here. And so if you look at just another knife on typical jack, this is a slim jack right here by Russell. Right there, old Russell knife here. It has a much smaller bolster on it, and so that's a defining feature of the barlow. Now, if you had a bolster on this end of the knife, it wouldn't be a barlow. If you had a bare head but a smaller bolster, it still wouldn't be a barlow. You have to have the bare head and you have to have the larger bolster on the knife for it to be considered a barlow. So just real quickly before we get into specifics, let's look at what is not a barlow. Okay, when you look at this knife, a lot of people will call this a barlow. This is the Kershaw Culpeper. Has that familiar regular jack pattern, but if you look at the size of this barlow compared with this John Primble barlow, you can see it's much smaller. And so this is not a barlow, even though it has a bare head. It doesn't have that extended bolster on it. So this isn't a barlow. When you look at this knife here, they're very similar sizes, very similar knives overall. This is a beautiful Joseph Rogers and Sons with diamond checkered horn, and you can again see it has a smaller bolster on it, and this is not a barlow. Um, Again, you have the sleeve board design. These are both sleeve board designs, uh, but you have the cap on the head of the knife here, and so this wouldn't be a barlow, and it also doesn't have the extended bolster. So this is just a sleeve board jack right here, even though they're very similar sizes. Right here, this knife, again, very similar size, but this is called a Chattahoochee Jack by Rosecraft, and rightly so, because it's not a barlow. It doesn't have that large extended bolster on it. Here's another example right here. This really, it has the large extended bolster that you can see here. Some barlows do have razor um, um, blades here. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it has a cap on the head of the knife. It has another bolster here. So this is just a sleeve board jack right there. And that's what makes a barlow, is this right here. So when you're looking at these Arthur Wright knives, although Arthur Wright does make barlows, most of the knives that you see from Arthur Wright and the English knives that are going around today are not really barlows. They're jacks. So let's talk a little bit about the specifics of a barlow. So there's basically two sizes of barlows. This barlow by Cutmaster right here, as most of these on the table, are 3 3/8 inches long. That is your standard barlow. Sometimes they go up to 3.5 inches. So I'd say 3 3/8 to 3.5 inches is a standard barlow. When you go up from there, you're talking about these knives right here. This is a old Robeson sure edge. These are 5 inches, and these knives were called Daddy and sometimes Granddaddy Barlow. So you can find them in the old catalogs listed under both names, either Daddy or Granddaddy Barlows. These were primarily hunting knives that people use because of the large size of the knife. Whoa. I don't know why I couldn't get a hold of that to open it up. But that's a really old Robeson with the RCC on it right there. Old turn of the century Robeson. Here's a couple more here. This is a Schrade. This is a newer produced Schrade right here. Pretty cool. Anyhow, these are Daddy or Granddaddy Barlows. Now there's a couple other ones, but you just don't see a lot of them. So this is a really rare knife here. These are called baby Barlows. They're 3 inches or under is a baby Barlow. I've never seen a vintage baby Barlow. So I'm talking pre-1940. I've never seen one. This is a Schrade Walden baby Barlow. Would date before 1970, and probably I think that dates to the 50s actually. Here's a new one right here in a sleeve board pattern, and this is a Hen and Rooster, made in Spain. Really nice knife here. Again, you don't see a lot of these baby Barlows, and the vintage ones are just really rare. Recently, you're starting to see a mid-sized barlow, a 4-inch barlow, and these again, you just don't see them in antiquity at all. So this is a relatively new thing that's happening on the barlow scene. So barlows typically can be one or two bladed. Usually they're either a clip blade in this Schrade model right here, this old Granddaddy Barlow Schrade with the scrolled bolster. Pretty neat. Worked back on this one. This is really nice example of a Schrade really did a nice job on this. This is a nice knife right here. And also you have the sleeve board or spear point blade like the case right here, the case Barlow. But they also had other blades. This old Robeson right here has a spay blade on it, and some had spay blades, some had sheepfoot, some have razor blades like this blade right here. This is not a Barlow, but some had razor blades like that. I don't have an example of one with a razor blade. As far as the pattern, this is what we're used to today. This is an American Barlow, and this pattern of Barlow has existed for a long period of time, but it wasn't always that case. If you look at this Barlow right here, a turn of the century Barlow, this is a curved jack, and prior to the 1860s, most Barlows were curved jack. And so the curved jacks had like a curve, the spine starts curving up. Some of them even had pistol grips on them. And I'm showing you a picture right now of some from the Civil War that look a lot like this Barlow right here. If you go further back, this is a picture of one from the Revolutionary War. These, of course, are usually dug up examples that people find. And here's one more from the Revolutionary War right there. And that is what typical Barlows were. They were also a little larger prior to the 1800s. So back in the 1700s, they tended to be a little bigger also. So this pattern, this Barlow pattern, was really the brainchild of a guy called Obadiah Barlow. He started his career in 1667 in Sheffield, England. And his idea when he started producing these Barlows was to produce an inexpensive older boy's knife, and that way you could get these people hooked on knives so that they would buy more expensive knives. And so most of your older vintage Barlows were like this in smooth bone, sometimes saw cut, but very inexpensively done. And these were not boys' knives. So one thing you'll notice about these knives is there are no bales on them. And that's because they were meant for older boys, probably 14 and up, to get them used to a knife and get them hooked on a knife so that later on in life they would buy them. Sometimes there were wood handles or bone handles. And it's really not until the knives come to America that you start seeing them in stag or mother of pearl or horn. And those were upper end, higher end Barlows. Those were the types of Barlows that might have been have fancy bolsters like this on it, and jigged bone or stag. So the boys' knives were just less expensive, regular smooth bone. So Obadiah Barlow, in in 1710, his grandson started to work with him and continued on his business. And then his grandson was John Barlow, and then John Barlow had a son who he named John, and he joined him in 1775. So by 1798, great grandson John Barlow passed away, and this Barlow name and business, really good business. They became quite wealthy. That business passed away. So after that, there were a number of other Barlows, but none of them are really thought to have been family members. There's a picture up there right now of a cat named Samuel Barlow. He's really not believed to be related to Obadiah Barlow. His was a scimitar and a sideways Z trademark. Later, after the Barlows, John Barlow passed away, he added the Barlow. There's a picture there with his renewed, reinvented trademark with the scimitar, sideways Z, and Barlow. And there were a number of other Barlows that came along also. During the 1800s, primarily, you had Samuel Barlow. His business ran, I think he passed away around 1830, something like that, and his son carried on his business. But Samuel Barlow ran from 17 to the 1880s, 1700 to the 1880, not 1700, 1790s to the 1880s. And not recently, I think it was last year, I bid on one of his knives, Samuel Barlow's knives, and I missed getting that knife by $10. And it was really rough shape, but it was really old Barlow, like from the 1830s. And that kind of disappointed me. But you also had a John Barlow that made table cutlery in the 1870s. You had a James Barlow who was a razor maker. His business ran from 1828 to 1856. And there was another Wade Barlow. Let's see, I think I'm showing you a picture of Wade Barlow's knife right now. I think his ran from 1860 to 1880, if I'm not mistaken. So when you're looking for really old Barlows, they look, as you can see from the picture, they look radically different than these Barlows right here. And that's how you can tell they're really old, because all of these kind of look the same. And even the really old ones, this one is a pretty old Barlow, probably 1900 to 1910. This one right here is a pretty old Barlow, about the same time frame. Could have been from the 1890s, this Barlow right here, to 1910, somewhere around that range. But they look very similar to the Barlows of today. But the older ones are radically different. So if you see any of those weird trademarks, or you see Barlows that are curved Barlows like this, those are probably going to be radically different and older Barlows. And that's one of the things you want to look for in Barlows. This is a really cool one here from Rough Rider. I really like this one. I like copper. And this is really well done Barlow from Rough Rider. Right here. Pretty cool. I think I touched base on all of these. Let me go through them again and make sure. Here's one from IXL, George Westinghouse Barlow. This is a pre-1970 Barlow here, and excellent shape. See right there, beautiful knife, beautiful black bone, great shape. This is one I picked up last year, John Premble from Bluegrass Cutlery. Really nice barlow here. Really nice. Natural jig bone. This is meant to simulate green bone, antique green bone. Right there. What else I got? This one right here. This is another case. It's a limited edition and saw cut, barnyard saw cut bone. Red. Another really nice case barlow. Clip point. What else we got? Showed that one. This is the Boker. Really nice barlow here. This is a club knife that Boker made. Genuine stag. Just absolutely gorgeous barlow from Boker. Real inlaid gold. 2008. Boker Soligen. And here's the old one. This is kind of cool, isn't it? The old and the new. This is marked Valley Forge. So this is when how Boker USA got started. This is an old Boker USA barlow. Just so cool. Old, new. All right, I think that's got it. I think I showed all of them. I hope you enjoyed the walk through history. Just an iconic knife, whether you like them or not. Just everybody should have a barlow, at least one in their collection. Really thank you guys for watching the video. Really appreciate all your support. Thanks again.